In the last year, since President Trump has been back in office, trade tensions between the U.S. and nations around the world have really reached a boiling point. Trump's tariffs are one of the reasons why we've seen leaders of traditional U.S. allies like the UK, Canada, and France make visits to China in recent months to attempt to reset relations. And I want to talk about where those relationships stand in a bit. But before we do, there has been a major development on the tariff front. Happened today. The Supreme Court ruled that President Trump's Liberation Day tariffs are unlawful. And after that ruling, you posted this: China's regime, after the Supreme Court tariff decision, must be breaking out the champagne. Talk to us about that.
Xi Jinping's only realistic plan to rescue the Chinese economy is to export more, because he's turned his back on consumption. Now, almost every analyst, economist, observer has said that China needs to have a consumption-based economy to have a sustainable one. But Xi Jinping doesn't believe that. And you can see the numbers. Consumption accounts for something like, 38, 39% of China's GDP. That number has actually gone down in recent years. And Xi Jinping has put much more emphasis on production, on factory production, which means because China can't absorb all that production, it has to export more. And with the president's tariffs now declared unconstitutional, at least those under the International Emergency Economic Powers Act of 1977, China now has perhaps greater access to the American market. So that's the reason why they're breaking out the champagne. They now have better into the American market. And by the way, Brittany, we account for something like 34% of global consumption. Everybody needs the U.S. market.
The IEEPA tariffs, as you said, that is such a large swath of the tariffs that have been found unconstitutional. I'm curious what you think this does to trade negotiations with China. If China's popping out the champagne right now, they're celebrating, do they have more leverage at the negotiating table with the United States when it comes to trade?
I think that they do. Now, President Trump has other legislative authority under which he can impose tariffs. But the Emergency Act of 1977, IEEPA, clearly was the main tool that he used. So yes, I'm sure they're very happy at this point.
And President Trump is visiting China at the end of next month and into April. How do you think this decision impacts those talks?
I think it puts Trump in a much weaker position than he otherwise would have been. And I don't think he should go anyway for a number of reasons. But now, unless he can figure out a way to reimpose tariffs on China, I think that he should stay away. He should stay away until he has been able to repair his bargaining position.
Over the past couple of weeks and months, we have seen leaders of traditional U.S. allies like China, the UK, France, amongst others, try to defrost their relationships with China. And part of the reason we are seeing this reportedly is because of President Trump's tariffs, his comments on NATO allies, and his desire to acquire Greenland. Does this concern you?
I've been very concerned about, you had Emmanuel Macron in December, you had Keir Starmer of England or Great Britain in January, Friedrich Merz, Germany this month. The list goes on. And of course, Carney, Canada. So yes, we've got to be very concerned that our closest allies are trying to develop closer economic relations with Beijing. And Carney, when he was in Beijing, talked about a strategic partnership. This is a country, Canada, which controls our long northern undefended border. So yes, China's been very influential in Ottawa in the Justin Trudeau years. It very well may become more influential. That's a real national security risk to the United States.
And if President Trump and the Trump administration, they're seeing this, how do you think they should be responding? What should that really look like?
Well, there are a number of things that need to be done. So for instance, with regard to Canada, we have some serious national security concerns with Canada, which have been left unaddressed for a very long time. It was good for President Trump to address them, but now he needs to repair relations with Ottawa, because it is in our interest, as well as in Canada's interest, to make sure that we have a durable bond. And again, I believe it's important for President Trump to do the same things with other countries. Yes, Greenland is important to American security, but Canada is even more important to the United States. So these are things that I think that we need to keep in perspective. China is, I believe, an enemy. That's what they call us. We should be thinking about that in the same terms. But NATO countries are not our enemies, and we shouldn't be treating them as enemies, as sometimes Trump has done. So it's important for us to make sure that we treat our friends well and our enemies poorly.